Welcome to Blooming Dandelion, where we explore healing, growing, and evolving to live a balanced and fulfilling life. I'm your host, Andrea Rivera Cazul, and each week we'll dive into practical tips, inspiring stories, and expert advice to help you bloom. Let's get started. We are back for yet again another episode of Blooming Dandelion. I am your host, Andrea Rivera. I go by Andy for y'all. I'm so happy that y'all are back here to listen to another episode. I don't know if y'all noticed from the first one, but I was really excited. I mean, like, really. And I probably used the word excited far too much, but I just couldn't contain myself, okay? So we're not going to judge. This is a judgment-free zone. This is a safe zone for all of us. This is a safe space, okay? A safe space for all of us, including myself. I'm designating that right now. But yeah, so happy that you're back here for Blooming Dandelion. We are so excited, and I say we because this is a community effort. I can't be here without all of y'all. And so this is a we effort. We are here to continue the work, to continue loving ourselves, growing, evolving, healing, because we are in this together. And I'm so excited. Again, there's the word, excited. Oh my gosh. I am so excited because we're going to be talking about the metamorphosis. The metamorphosis through healing. And I labeled this episode the metamorphosis of the dandelions, or the dandelion metamorphosis, because I think that truly dandelions have such an impact of my life, which is why I use dandelions for all of like my signature things that I do. And so I really wanted it to be cohesive in what I do. It's like my branding. And so I am so excited to talk more about why dandelions, why is it so important to me for us to go through this dandelion journey together, and just, do this as a united front. But first I wanted to introduced, oh my goodness, I can't speak today or any day, but again, this is a judgment-free zone. I hope you're laughing at me and with me, because this is, again, a judgment-free zone and you can always laugh. But we are going to introduce a segment called Bloom and Soil, and you are going to be very, very, very familiar with this because it's going to be exactly the same as highs and lows. But I labeled it Bloom and Soil because I think it's so important to not label it a low, because soil is fertile and a low can be something constructive that we can work on and we can grow from, and it's something that will catapult us into a better future, into learning more about ourselves. And lows don't have to be always bad, okay? So that's why I labeled it Bloom and Soil. And so I want to get into that real quick about Bloom and Soil, because this past week I had an eventful past week. And so my bloom was that I really got to experience a lot of camaraderie and friendship and time with people that pour into my well-being, into my mental health, and that check in on me. And that really was just time well spent, and time that I needed to connect with them, time that I needed to, just be surrounded by love, by peers, by my friends who I call family. And so that is my bloom. My friends are my family that really check in on me, because I don't have that many family members that live out here in Massachusetts. So my friends are my designated family members out here. And so that is my bloom. I think that that's number one, is that my tribe, my friends, my chosen people are always people that will always look out for me. My soil. My soil. Things have been testing me, and I can't really describe just yet in depth the one thing that has been testing me, but I think professionally, I have been getting tested, and I know that it's pushing me into becoming more of a better person for my coworkers and a better human being as well. I think as well, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now that have impacted me as a human being that, I think should impact a lot of people. And so I think my soil continues to be the ongoing tragedies that are going on in Palestine and in Gaza. And so I hope that everyone is vigilant into what's going on, and, we continue to be the voice for the voiceless, because I think that this is also the reason why this podcast is here, right? I want to be the voice for the voiceless, and that doesn't matter if I'm not being the voice for the voiceless for all, right? I can't be there for everyone, but I can try to be there for as many people as I can be. And so this is one of the most impactful moments that we probably collectively are all experiencing, because it's all in our faces. So those are kind of my two blooming soils. I think it's really important that we take care of ourselves at this time, especially with, what is going on. And I think that it's okay to take care of ourselves, because it is impactful to go through, compassion burnout. And for you to be able to show up for others and to show up for important topics and important social justice efforts, you have to take care of yourself. So that's my blooming soil. And I hope that you at home get to write down your blooming soil. And I want to know what your blooming soil is. So please, 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 in my Instagram at not blooming soil, my goodness, at Blooming Dandelion Podcast, at Blooming Dandelion Podcast, let me know what your blooming soil was. Let me know. I want to know what your bloom was, what your soil was. Let me know so that we can share collectively. I want to know so that we can continue to build together as a community, okay? This is all going to be something that we can grow as a collective. And so if we can start by doing the bloom and soil, I think it's going to be really special. And hopefully we can continue building on from there. So I just thought of that, and, I really was enamored by the name, and I think that the soil part is important, because I don't want anyone to feel like we need to be enraptured by our lows. And I used to do this back when I was a student in college with my RAs and my team members, and I used to remember that so many of us had lows, and sometimes they would feel like defeated and like would leave defeated. And so I just want folks to know that their lows can feel hopeful. So hopefully that leaves you feeling hopeful, that your low can still build you up. Okay? So I want to dig in a little bit deeper about what we're going to talk about today, because through a healing journey, we go through a metamorphosis. And I truly believe that we also see so many signs that sometimes we don't even see, right? Or sometimes we don't even notice the signs until we're going through it. And so when we are having difficult moments, those signs kind of flicker in the moment, or we're having a struggling moment, and as time progresses, that flickering, suggestive thought might have come up, or something passed right in front of you, and you're like, was that just like the moment that like should have been like that opening eye moment? And so I think that when we go through metamorphosis, it's really important that we open our eyes and are ready to like see what might happen in this journey. So the reality of the situation is that we all heal differently, and our traumas are different, because they could be physical, they could be emotional. And I think that how we show up for ourselves depends on how our trauma has shown up for ourselves and how we cope, right? For those traumatic events and traumatic moments is really conducive, or even just it indicates more so than anything how we have been impacted. And so truthfully, like emotional and psychological trauma can be caused by so many things, right? It can be one-time events, it can be ongoing events, or it can be even sometimes overlooked events that we don't even think about. I think about, one-time events can be like accidents, right? I have been in several car accidents, and when I have gotten inside of a car, I get now nervous to drive, right? And that wasn't something that happened before. Or ongoing stress, right? There might be something that you could be living through. That could be a life-threatening illness, or even something as traumatic as something as I've gone through, as domestic violence, or even childhood abuse or bullying, right? That has impacted us because that has been ongoing for so long. And then even something that I, researched on helpguide.org, which I thought was really useful. I saw this as a commonly overlooked cause was surgery. And I know that surgery can be traumatic. I mean, obviously it's a really heavy thing, which I had gotten surgery, but my surgery wasn't a crazy surgery. It was laparoscopic. I almost forgot the word for that. But surgery can have, that can be an overlooked experience. Obviously, the sudden death of someone, because obviously it happens, hopefully not as often, but like it is something that happens. The breakup of a significant other, or even friendship breakups, right? That's impactful and that is traumatizing. That the moments that we feel humiliated, and moments that we feel like we've been impacted cruelly, those are all traumatic moments. And I thought that that was so important to also delineate, because I think that at least the commonly overlooked causes is something that we might not always think about. We always think about the obvious ones, right? The one-time events or the ongoing ones. And the commonly overlooked ones truly get overlooked, because once you heal from it, you kind of forget about it until the trauma anniversary comes, or maybe something reminds you of it. But the other ones, it's kind of more prevalent. It kind of shows up a little bit more. That last podcast, we went through a little bit about some of the symptoms of a trauma anniversary. And I think that it's important to also talk about trauma symptoms. In any episode, I will continue to bring these up, because I know for a fact that some folks might listen to one episode or two episodes, or not all of them at once. And so I want to always be giving out education and tools and all of that, and resources. And with the trauma, a lot of the symptoms that we see emotionally and psychologically, and I'm going off of helpguide.org again, the shock and denial or disbelief, confusion, difficulty concentrating, anger, irritability, mood swings, anxiety and fear, guilt, shame, self-blame, withdrawing from others, feeling sad or hopeless, feeling disconnected or numb. So all of those were emotional and psychological symptoms, which I think a lot of us have undergone if we've gone through, DV situations or even SA. And I think that it's really important that if you have a loved one, or, friends, family members that you see that are going through this, that you just keep in mind that something may be going on. Some of the physical symptoms that I think are always interesting as well. Insomnia or nightmares, fatigue, being startled easily, difficulty concentrating, racing heartbeat, edginess and agitation, aches and pains, muscle tension. So some of those are the physical symptoms. So these are, I think honestly, this might not be a super expansive list, because I think, again, this is very much so unique to every single person's experience, right? And I think that if you might not fall under these categories, it doesn't mean that you haven't gone through something traumatic. And I think that if you read this and you hear this and you haven't gone through something like this, but you do have trauma, there's nothing wrong with you in the sense that you don't fall into these categories, okay? Your trauma is still valid, okay? Your trauma is still valid, and you have still gone through something traumatic. Just because you haven't gone through any of these symptoms or you haven't responded to anything like this does not mean that your trauma is not valid. It just means that your trauma has shown up somewhere else or someplace different. And I hope that you have sought out help to figure out how it has been progressing or how it has been showing up, because it's important to see how it has been showing up for so many. I think for myself, while I was going through my relationship, I definitely had pent up anger that I definitely now outside of it, and at some point or another I'll share more specifics, but I definitely lashed out with family members. I was very alone. I withdrew from others. I mean, I shared that in the last episode, that I was alone a lot of times. I definitely felt a lot of guilt and shame and self-blame, and I think to this day still that's something that I continuously battle through. And the numbness that I felt a lot of time, that the last couple of months, insomnia, fears, nightmares, all of that. I mean, it's truly such an impactful list of things that go through your mind that you don't even correlate to these things, because you're stuck in survival mode. And as you're stuck in survival mode, you feel like you're drowning, but you feel like you're constantly swimming against current, and you feel like it's just a never-ending loop, and it's almost like you can never catch your breath. And it's like, when will it ever stop? And it almost feels like if you stop fighting, it feels like it's over. It feels like there's no way out, and why give up? And I feel like that's also something like scary to think about, to say like, if I gave up, that would have been too much. But I think that it's always important to check in with your people, right? I think it's important to bring in people that will understand, or even if you don't feel like you have people that will understand what you're going through, find help. Because I think once you bring in the people that will help you out to decipher a plan, to decipher what will help you out, to decipher the symptoms that you're feeling, it will empower you to make educated decisions. Because I think when we go through this, it doesn't mean that we don't know what trauma looks like, right? Because I think a lot of us go through the examples of, there's been a training at school and they taught us about how to not talk to a stranger or whatever, right? They bring so many tools to our toolkit. But when it comes to being in the middle of it, you don't know how to use it. You're kind of in the middle of it. And when you're enamored by a person, you're kind of stuck. You're stuck in it. And how do you decipher what's good or bad when you gave your trust to someone completely? So I always say, try to find somebody that can listen to you, that is neutral, that doesn't have any, valued interest in your situation, because they will help you out wholeheartedly and help you go through it. With all of this, right, when we are going through the journey of healing and going through the metamorphosis again, we have to choose to heal, because there are moments that I've seen so many people leave situations and never go through therapy, never choose to heal, never choose to talk about their situations, and what do they end up doing? They end up getting into other relationships, or just end up being terrorizing people, just being mean, right? Because they just have so much pent up anger and sadness that they just have never healed from. And not being able to talk about what you have gone through is okay, because sometimes the trauma is that much. But if you have just been ongoing and just being numb and just going on with whatever it is that you have gone through, it's not going to get any better. It's not. And so if there is anything that I can tell you, is that to go through truly a self-love, a confidence, a metamorphosis journey, you have to heal. You have to evolve. You have to let go of your past, and you won't forget. I will say that you will never forget, unfortunately. It will always continue with us. But the healed version of you will know how to deal with it. The healed version of you will no longer have this tiny little box with all the trauma trying to squeeze out of it. This healed version of you will now have a box that is the size of a house, and your trauma will now be in the basement, right? So you have to heal, and you have to choose to grieve through a process, and you have to ease through the worst of the worst to get to a better situation. And sometimes it's tough. It's tough to go through that, because sometimes it feels like you have to isolate. It feels like you have to do everything all at once, and it's overwhelming. So then you go into flight or flight mode too against yourself, and then you end up procrastinating and going into your room, shutting the door, and saying, no more. I'm not doing this. Self-love, healing, that's too hard. When literally healing will be hard. I will be the first one to tell you, healing is the most difficult thing you will have to go through besides your trauma. Why? Because you have to face your trauma face first. And it is so difficult. It is really difficult to look at it face first and be like, yep, this happened to me. And not use the humor, the dark humor that we love to use, because, yep, I do that too. And it's also not easy to just say, you know, that memorable moment that I thought I was going to share with the most amazing person, I shared with my abuser. And that's also hard to grasp. And it's a cycle of never ending, you know, all the symptoms of guilt, shame, self-blame, anxiety, fear, shock, denial, disbelief. I mean, it is a revolving door, ladies, gents, and gentlethems. It is literally a revolving door. I can't imagine. I mean, the day that it'll become easier will be the day that I take my hat off to anyone that shows me what that means. But it will be worth it. Healing and making it easier for us on a day-to-day basis makes it so worth it. Being able to cope and self-regulate in healthier patterns makes it worth it. Being able to not be triggered as hard as, you know, it was triggering at first makes it worth it. Being able to not be paralyzed by fear because it was a scent that was triggering for you makes it worth it. And I promise you, it still will be triggering, but the triggers will be less triggering. And it's up to you when you choose to involve that metamorphosis, that healing, and when it will be important for you. Only you can decide that. No one else can. No one can dictate what that healing will look like for you. No one can dictate what healing looks like for you. Okay? My healing journey looks so different than everyone else's. My healing journey was rapid and I would say honestly like so scattered because it was erratic and all over the place, and it helped me. And I had a lot of tools because I was a professional that worked in an industry that trained me up for all these scenarios as well. So I used to say that half of my brain worked as the professional healing me, and half of my brain was the survivor and was destroyed. So I literally was always working in my brain, and that was exhausting. It almost felt like I never had downtime. And that was also not good for my mental health, being on at all times and always having to worry about somebody else before myself. It was a lot. It was so much. And I will say this, I want to get into the healing metamorphosis and also the dandelion metamorphosis, because I really want to get into why I call it the dandelion metamorphosis, because I think it's beautiful, it's impactful, and it's a part of my journey of why I decided to call it that. I went through my journey starting in 2018 technically. In December 2018 was when I started truly my separation of everything, right? Because I had left my ex-husband. I separated and left immediately after I had kicked him out of my house in November, the last day of November of 2018, and emergency left my house the next day. So I have not been in communication in person or seen that person since 2018. And when I went to Puerto Rico, that was when I started my immersive and in-depth therapy. And that was the start of my healing journey, and I wanted it. I immensely needed hand-holding and support, and I was grateful that I had it from my family. I was grateful that I had it from friends. I was grateful that I had a community behind me. When I moved to Massachusetts was when I added the physical part to my healing journey. I wanted to overcome the words of hate that were spewed against me, from bullying from a young age to also just taking control of the narrative of what my abuser had told me for so many years, that I was lazy, that I was never meant to do anything, that one of the comments that was made after I was diagnosed with PCOS was that I was never going to become a mother, and that I couldn't do the most basic thing as a mom, as a woman. And so I wanted to take back the narrative and heal from that. And that meant getting fit in my head. And so in 2019, when I moved over here and started doing the whole fitness journey and everything, that was back in September or October when I moved over here. And it was hard. That fitness journey was really hard. That first year, I don't ever recommend how I lost my weight. It was fast. It was probably not at the healthiest manner. I lost it super fast. I lost over 140 pounds in 9 months. And there were moments that I was so tired, and moments that I was exhausted, and moments that I was triggered. a lot too as I was going through this. I thought I was, weak. I almost broke down a lot. There were times that, because this happened during the pandemic as well, this is the time that impacted me the most. I'm a person that truly believes in signs. I have always thought of them as like signs from the universe, signs from the great beyond, whoever is trying to give me that sign. I always appreciate it because I think that they're either warnings or just they're trying to tell me something, right? I think that they just are little gifts and nuggets of knowledge is what I like to call them. And around the area that I lived at, I obviously at the time of the pandemic and now pandemic lifting some restrictions, there wasn't, or they didn't allow folks to go into the gym. So I was stuck doing my workouts outside. And I shouldn't say stuck, right? I was privileged enough to be able to be doing my workouts outside. I should change that mind frame, right? We're not stuck. We are allowed. I was allowed and able to. And I was doing my workout outside, and I was running around and walking around the track and field area, and there were plenty of people around, and I was so low at the time. I don't know what had triggered me around this week. It was around George Floyd's murder. It was just a low week. It was really a low week. And I just so happened to see and look above and just noticed that the middle field, where usually it was a high school track field, usually the middle field, which was usually bare, it was filled with dandelions. And I just noticed that they just started to flurry around me. And I was like, this can't be, a coincidence. This can't be just something that is happening in the middle of me just having kind of like a breakdown. And I kept that in my mind. I went back home. I walked all the way home. I walked 30 minutes to my house. When I got home, after showering, after decompressing and everything, I sat down at my computer and I said, let me check. I really want to know the symbolism, the meaning behind dandelions, because I can't move on from this. Something in me was just telling me that I really needed to just learn more about them and just kind of dig deep. And so when I did, and I'm gonna butcher this because I don't know how to speak French, but the first thing that I saw was that the French term for dandelion is Dandelion. I hope I said that right. So if somebody learned French or knows how to read French or knows how to speak French, please correct me. But it said Dandelion, which means lion's teeth. And first I was like, okay, lion's teeth, which is pretty cool because lion's teeth is kind of like when you see a lion, I think that they're pretty ominous, and not ominous in the sense of they're scary of evil, but ominous in the sense of they strike fear. They are strong and they are mighty and they are the king of the jungle, right? They are king of the safari. You see them and you respect them. You will not be walking outside when there's a lion, right? So first of all, that was cool. And then when I kept on reading and searching for more information, I also just, before reading more, I was just trying to think about what is the normal, understanding of what dandelions are. I feel like a lot of people just see them as weeds, right? A lot of people kill them. A lot of people find them as a nuisance. They grow like every year, and everyone wants to get rid of them, and they're a pest. They're everywhere, and I just want them gone. And I thought about that too, and I was just like, that just kept on like bringing some more thoughts in my head. And so I kept on reading, and it said dandelions are known as a humble plant, which, yes, again, it's a weed. But also, dandelions are a symbol of hope, healing, and resilience. When I read that, I felt a sense of calm and a sense of ease that still to this day, every time I read that and every time I see a dandelion, I feel just so powerful. And dandelions also have the ability to survive the worst challenging conditions, which when I read that, man, I felt something shake me to my core. And I'm going to read you this whole paragraph that I found about the meaning of dandelions. So the resilience and strength of dandelions are known for their ability to thrive in challenging conditions, pushing through concrete and returning year after year. This resilience has made them a powerful symbol of strength, determination, and the ability to overcome adversity. Just like dandelions, we too can tap into our inner strength and persevere through life's challenges. Transformation and renewal. Dandelions undergo a remarkable transformation from bright yellow flowers to delicate, wispy seed heads. This metamorphosis represents personal growth, change, and the power of transformation. Embracing the dandelion meaning in this context can inspire us to shed old habits, embrace new beginnings, and trust in our ability to evolve. Let's take a second to sit with that. Embrace new beginnings, shed old habits, and trust in our ability to evolve. Wow. When I had read that years ago, it impacted me. And as I underwent my healing journey, and as time has gone by and I've lost the weight, gained the weight, kept healing more, and gotten stronger, this passage and the meaning of dandelions means so much more to me now than when this first started. When this whole thing started and I started my TikTok page and posting about my journey and sharing my authentic journey and everything, I started calling everyone my dandelions, and I will continue to call them my dandelions. The reason behind that is because I truly believe that I have gone through a challenging situation. I have grown through concrete. I have grown through adversity. I have been resilient. And I have gone through the other side. And people see these weeds, dandelions, as frail or as annoying. But I think the beauty of a dandelion is that even when you pluck them and you blow them away, their seedlings get blown into the distance and they grow more. I truly believe that our community as dandelions is for us to heal together, to become the wispy seed heads, and to blow into the distance and create more dandelions as we go, to impact each other in positive self-love, in healing and evolving and growing. Because it's hard to go through these things by ourselves. It's hard to imagine life without people and companionship. And that's why dandelions mean so much to me. It's one of the reasons why it's tattooed on my body. I went the following year and immediately got a pinky promise tattoo, and above that there's a dandelion right above. Because I promise to myself as the dandelion that I promise to always be authentic to myself. And I promise myself that I will never give up any form, right? I will never give up on myself in the sense of healing, in the sense of growing. The day that that happens will be the day that I cease to exist. The day that I give up learning more things about myself and growing and evolving will be the day that I will no longer be here. But the day that I no longer can share authentically with y'all will be the day that the Dandelion community does exist. But I want y'all to know that as dandelions, it's important for us to be able to grow, evolve, and to touch other people's lives in a positive manner, to be able to change and impact through that. I want to know that it's okay to evolve into that dandelion because our resiliency has pushed us through that. It's okay to shed our old habits and become this metamorphosis that represents our personal growth. It's okay to change, and it's okay to also be afraid, right? There's some comfort in staying the same. There's comfort in being our old selves. There's comfort in not challenging ourselves. There is comfort in that. But sitting down with yourself and facing certain things about our healing, our trauma, sometimes is necessary. And sometimes it's okay to look at yourself and say, I can't do this by myself, and I need to go get help from a professional. That doesn't make you any less strong. That doesn't make you any less of a dandelion. A dandelion recognizes their weaknesses and strengths, and a strength is knowing when to ask for help. I want everyone to know that it's okay to not be okay. A metamorphosis isn't only being strong. A metamorphosis is also knowing that you can be weak and soft. Being soft is necessary for survival. Being soft does not make you weak. It does not make you weak to ask for help. It does not make you weak to look into your traumas. It does not make you weak to challenge old ideas that have not made you happy. There are plenty of things that don't serve you anymore. And it's okay to challenge those ideas. It's okay to challenge folks that have brought those ideas to you. And it's okay to distance yourself from folks that have given you those ideas. I want you to put into practice, what does my metamorphosis look like? And at least find two things that you can focus on. Is my metamorphosis physical? Is my metamorphosis spiritual? Is my metamorphosis emotional? Is my metamorphosis medical? Right? Some of us may be looking for medical health and wellness because we might have just not looked into our health for so long. We have to look at what ways can we look at our metamorphosis. Our metamorphosis can be so much. Our metamorphosis can also look like, what does self-care look like to me? Our metamorphosis can be like looking at what coping skills are healthy for me, also looking at what coping skills are negative and unhealthy, and what can I replace them for that are healthier, right? Some of us might have chosen drugs and alcohol at some point to be our coping skills. And maybe, just maybe, that was rock bottom for some of us. And maybe we had to choose to put away the alcohol, put away drugs, and choose to get clean, to go on a sober path, and find another coping skill. And that's also okay. Finding strengths in letting go of our weaknesses is beautiful. And being able to change is beautiful. Being able to heal and forgive yourself is beautiful. And you are so strong for overcoming any resilience. There is beauty in change. There is beauty in the metamorphosis. And I hope you never, ever forget that. I am Andy Rivera. I'm so happy that you were able to tune in this week for the Dandelion Metamorphosis. I hope that you put into practice this week the blooming soil and adding what 2 things do you want to add to your metamorphosis? What do you want to focus on? Okay? And that you remember that here on Blooming Dandelion, we want you to keep on blooming. Love y'all. See y'all next week. Thanks for tuning in to Blooming Dandelion. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Follow us on social media on Instagram at Blooming Dandelion Podcast for more inspiration. And remember to keep on blooming. See you next time, dandelions.